Get a real job, my twin sister Chloe said, eyeing the faint smudge of peat moss on my sleeve. Everyone's tired of pretending your little garden hobby is a career. I set my glass down, looked her dead in the eye, and spoke quietly. Do you realize the Michelin-starred menu keeping your entire restaurant group afloat would vanish tomorrow if I stopped signing our supplier contracts? We are 28, but we live in entirely different worlds. Chloe is the COO of a luxury dining group, all tailored blazers, expensive perfume, and sharp heels clicking on marble floors. I'm Julian. I spend my days in humid labs and dark greenhouses covered in soil, cultivating rare white truffles and gourmet fungi. To our parents, she was the golden child who conquered the city, and I was just the eccentric disappointment who smelled like compost. They laughed off my comment, assuming it was just a bitter joke. They didn't even notice how quickly Chloe's smirk faded.
Chloe and I weren't always completely estranged. When we were kids, we shared a backyard and a face, but our paths split early. She discovered she was good at commanding a room. I discovered I was good at listening to things that grew in the dark. I vividly remember when I was 12. I had spent months building a makeshift, climate-controlled enclosure out of an old aquarium and discarded PC fans, trying to cultivate a notoriously difficult wild mushroom strain. When the first cluster finally bloomed, perfect, velvety blue and thriving, I carefully brought the heavy glass tank into the living room. My parents were on the couch, toasting Chloe, who had just won a regional French debate championship. Her massive gold trophy took up the entire coffee table. "Mom, Dad, look what I managed to grow," I said, my hands slightly shaking with excitement. My mother barely glanced over her wine glass. "That's nice, honey. Put that damp thing outside before it stains the hardwood." My dad didn't even look up from Chloe's certificate. "Don't bring dirt into the house, Julian. Look at your sister's achievement. That takes real skill." That afternoon set the pattern for the next decade. Chloe was the family investment. I was the tax write-off. The final snap came at a family dinner when we were 22. Chloe had just landed a prestigious coordinator role at Aura Dining Group. She spent an hour detailing her new office, her corporate expense account, and the elite chefs she was networking with. When my aunt finally asked what I was up to, I mentioned I was developing an automated vertical cultivation system for rare culinary fungi. My dad actually snickered into his drink. "Fungi? You mean you're growing mold in a basement?" Chloe swirled her wine, offering a patronizing smile. "Honestly, Julian, if money gets tight, I can probably pull some strings and get you a job as a prep cook at one of our bistros. At least you'd get a clean uniform and a steady paycheck instead of playing in the mud." The table chuckled. My mother nodded approvingly at Chloe's generosity. I sat there, looking at my hands, feeling the familiar sting. But instead of arguing, a strange, calm clarity washed over me. They weren't blind to my potential. They were simply incapable of seeing it. I stopped proving myself that night. I stopped attending Sunday dinners, packed my bags, and went to work.
Right after university, my roommate Sam and I leased a drafty, abandoned warehouse on the industrial outskirts of the city. We named the venture Terra Nova Bio. We weren't trying to change the world. We just wanted to prove that premium, Michelin-grade culinary ingredients could be grown sustainably and with surgical precision indoors. The first 18 months were brutal. While my college peers were collecting bi-weekly paychecks and buying corporate wardrobes, Sam and I were living on instant ramen and cheap coffee. Every single dollar we scraped together went into climate control sensors, sterile hoods, and substrate materials. I maxed out 3 credit cards and sold my only reliable truck just to afford our first commercial autoclave. We slept on canvas cots right next to the incubation rooms because the automated misting systems were prone to glitching. A 2-degree drop in temperature at 3 a.m. could kill an entire cycle of delicate mycelium. I permanently smelled like damp earth and rubbing alcohol. My hands were rough, my fingernails stained from oak sawdust and peat moss. Chloe came by exactly once during our second year. She needed me to sign some old family property documents our parents had sent through her. She pulled up to the gravel lot in her company-leased sedan, looking absurdly out of place in a crisp white trench coat and designer heels. She didn't even make it past the loading dock. She stood at the threshold, pressing a silk handkerchief to her nose, stepping daintily around a small puddle of water from our drainage line. She looked at the towering racks of substrate bags and the glowing blue LED grow lights with pure pity. "Is this it?" she asked, her voice echoing coldly against the concrete walls. "It smells like a swamp in here, Julian. How can you live like this?" "We're perfecting the incubation cycle," I said, wiping my sweaty forehead with a damp shop towel. "It takes time to build a foundation." Chloe sighed, reaching into her handbag. She pulled out a sleek, embossed business card and tossed it onto a plastic crate. "Look, I know you're stubborn, but this little mud farm is running you into the ground. You look exhausted. If you ever decide to face reality, call the number on that card. I spoke to the head chef at our flagship bistro. He's willing to give you a shot in the dish pit. It's honest work, at least." She didn't wait for an answer. She turned on her heel, careful not to let her white coat brush against a rusted metal doorframe, and walked back to her car. I didn't throw the card away. I pinned it to the corkboard right above our primary lab station. It became a silent anchor. Every time my bones ached from a 16-hour shift, or when a batch contaminated and we lost a month's worth of progress, I'd look at that card. I didn't want an apology from her. I just wanted to build something so undeniably solid that her condescension would eventually look foolish.
By year 3, the grind paid off. We cracked the code on indoor white truffle cultivation, traditionally left to unpredictable wild foraging. Our product was perfectly consistent, dense, and possessed an intense aroma that drove high-end chefs crazy. We moved out of the drafty warehouse into a 30,000-square-foot facility, hiring agricultural scientists and lab techs. The money shifted from a slow trickle to a heavy downpour. By year 5, Terra Nova Bio was generating over $20 million a year. But on paper, Sam was the public face of the business. He handled the distribution and the clients. I preferred the quiet of the labs, away from the corporate posturing. That was how Aura Dining Group entered the picture. They were struggling. 2 of their flagship restaurants were on the verge of losing their Michelin stars due to supply inconsistencies. Their executive chef tasted our harvest at a trade show and practically begged for a regional partnership. Chloe, as COO, was tasked with finalizing the marketing campaign around this revolutionary culinary exclusive. Because Sam's name was on the sales emails, she had no clue who really owned the company. I remember sitting in my office watching a CC'd email thread where Chloe aggressively negotiated delivery terms with Sam. Her elegant corporate signature gleamed at the bottom of the screen, completely oblivious to the fact that her brother was the one approving the final price per kilogram. The irony peaked during Thanksgiving dinner that year. Chloe arrived looking triumphant, spending the entire appetizer round talking about her massive corporate victory. "We just locked down an exclusive contract with Terra Nova Bio, the absolute gold standard in high-end agriculture right now. It's going to save our seasonal menu. The founder is notoriously private, but my team managed to secure the deal." My mother beamed with pride. My father raised his glass in a toast. Then right on cue, my dad looked over at me. "Hear that, Julian? That's real business, real scale. How's your little greenhouse doing? Still selling oyster mushrooms to local grocery stores?" Chloe gave that soft, pitying laugh I knew too well. "Don't press him, Dad. Julian's happy with his dirt. Not everyone is built for high-stakes corporate negotiations. Some people are just content playing with shovels." I didn't say a word. I didn't pull out my phone to show them our quarterly earnings report. I didn't tell them that just that morning I had signed the executive order allowing Aura Dining Group to purchase our inventory at a 20% premium. I just took a sip of my water, smiled politely, and passed the gravy boat to my uncle. It was a strange, quiet kind of satisfaction. Let them keep their script. Reality was playing out in my favor anyway. The annual International Culinary Awards Gala was held at the Grand Plaza Ballroom. It was exactly the kind of event I avoided. Sharp tuxedos, expensive perfume, and corporate executives trading superficial compliments. I only attended because Sam had come down with a brutal case of the flu that morning, and someone had to accept our plaque for Agricultural Innovation of the Year. I kept it low-key, a simple gray suit, a clean white shirt, and polished but sensible leather shoes. No flash, just business. I spotted Chloe almost immediately. She was wearing a stunning emerald green designer gown, her hair swept up perfectly. She was holding a glass of champagne, laughing that practiced, melodic corporate laugh with a group of older men in tailored suits. She looked completely in her element, the undisputed star of Aura Dining Group. I grabbed a sparkling water from a passing tray and drifted toward the VIP reception area near the main stage, chatting quietly with a few head chefs who actually understood the science behind our cultivation methods. We were deep in a discussion about moisture control when I felt a sharp, tight grip on my elbow. I turned. Chloe was standing there, her perfect corporate smile completely gone, replaced by a look of sheer panic and anger. "What the hell are you doing here, Julian?" she hissed, her voice a low, fierce whisper. She looked around frantically as if checking if anyone had noticed her talking to me. "This is a private, high-ticket event. You can't just sneak in here." "I didn't sneak in, Chloe," I said calmly, pulling my arm away from her grip. "Don't lie to me," she snapped, her face flushing beneath her makeup. "Look at you. You don't belong here. Did you follow me? Are you trying to beg my CEO for a job because your little greenhouse finally went under? You are going to embarrass me in front of my peers." Before I could answer, she waved down a burly man in a black suit with an earpiece. "Excuse me, security," she said, her voice rising just enough to catch the attention of a few nearby guests. "This man doesn't have an invitation. He's trespassing in the VIP lounge. Please remove him before he causes a scene." The guard stepped forward, looking between my simple suit and Chloe's expensive gown. Several prominent chefs and executives stopped their conversations, turning their heads to watch the unfolding drama. Chloe stood tall, her chin up, waiting for her troublesome, dirt-stained brother to be dragged out of her perfect world.
The security guard reached for my shoulder, but before his hand could make contact, a sharp voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "Julian! My goodness, you actually made it!" Marcus Vance, the CEO of Aura Dining Group, stepped into the VIP circle, a wide grin on his face. Right behind him was Chef Andre, the group's legendary executive chef. Marcus brushed right past Chloe, completely ignoring her, and grabbed my hand, pumping it enthusiastically. "Sam told me you might fill in for him tonight, but I didn't want to get my hopes up. You are a hard man to drag out of the laboratory." The security guard instantly froze, stepping back into the shadows. Chloe's jaw went slack. The champagne in her glass sloshed over the rim. "Marcus? Sir? What is happening? There's a mistake. He's a trespasser. He's my brother." Marcus laughed, a booming sound that drew the attention of the surrounding tables. "A mistake? Chloe, this is Julian, the founder and head of research at Terra Nova Bio, the man whose cultivation methods just saved our winter menu. If it weren't for his signature on our exclusive supply contract, Aura Group wouldn't even be nominated tonight." Chef Andre stepped forward, nodding with deep respect. "The quality of that white truffle batch, Julian, absolute perfection. We owe our Michelin retention to your science." The circle of executives and food critics began whispering, shifting their gaze from me to Chloe. Chloe looked like she was having a physical breakdown. Her skin went pale, her rigid corporate posture completely collapsed. "No," she stammered, her polished tone slipping into something desperate and frantic. "No, that's impossible. He grows mold in a warehouse. He's an amateur. He's nobody." The whispers stopped. The silence in the ballroom became heavy and suffocating. Marcus's smile vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp look of professional disgust. "Chloe, control yourself. Julian owns 80% of Terra Nova. We've been dealing with his legal team for nearly a year. He literally approved your department's marketing budget last Tuesday." Chloe stared at me, her eyes wide, wild, and filled with a sudden horrifying clarity. Every condescending remark, every pitying laugh, every family dinner where she treated me like a charity case, it all replayed behind her eyes in a single second. "You knew," she whispered, her voice trembling so hard she could barely form the words. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just looked at her with the same calm indifference I'd kept for years. "You never asked, Chloe," I said quietly. She opened her mouth to scream, to defend herself, to spin the narrative, but under the icy stares of her CEO and the entire industry elite, she choked. She realized in one devastating moment that she had completely destroyed her own reputation. Terrified and utterly humiliated, she turned on her heel and bolted toward the exit, her designer gown trailing behind her as she ran from the room. My phone didn't stop vibrating for the rest of the night.
By 3 a.m., I had over 30 missed calls from Chloe and a string of text messages that traced her rapid descent from rage to desperation. "You set me up. You made me look insane in front of Marcus." An hour later, the tone shifted. "Julian, please call me. We are family. I was only hard on you all those years to push you to excel. Let's work together. I can handle Terra Nova's PR." Then came the final ugly threat. "If you destroy my career over a stupid childhood grudge, I will make sure Mom and Dad never speak to you again." By 6 a.m., my mother's voicemail started. She was crying, asking how I could be so cold, how I could hide my life just to trap my sister. My dad's message was a barrage of shouting about family loyalty and how I had blindsided them. I didn't reply to any of it. I poured a cup of black coffee and drove to the facility early. At 8 a.m., I sat down with Sam and our legal counsel. We didn't shout and we didn't celebrate. We just looked at the contract terms. Terra Nova Bio had an ironclad clause allowing us to terminate our supply agreement with Aura Dining Group if any of their executive staff engaged in public behavior that compromised our brand's reputation. Chloe's frantic, loud meltdown in front of dozens of industry witnesses fit the bill perfectly. By noon, the formal termination notice was drafted. By 2 p.m., it was delivered to Marcus Vance's office. I didn't stop there. We had been quietly courted for months by Vanguard Hospitality, Aura's largest and most aggressive competitor. I called their procurement director. By 4 p.m., we had signed a new exclusive distribution deal with Vanguard. All of our premium truffles and specialized fungi would be diverted to their kitchens by the end of the month. The fallout was swift and clinical. Marcus Vance didn't even try to fight the termination. He knew exactly why it was happening. By Monday morning, industry blogs were reporting a massive shift in the luxury dining supply chain. Aura Dining Group's upcoming seasonal launch was ruined. Their prestige took a massive hit, and investors began pulling back. Chloe didn't even get the chance to pack her office. The board fired her immediately for gross misconduct and for alienating the single most vital supplier the company had. Her name was quietly scrubbed from the executive directory, and because of the public nature of her breakdown at the gala, she was effectively blacklisted from every high-end hospitality firm in the city before the week was out. I blocked Chloe's number. Then I blocked my parents' numbers. I walked back into the cultivation rooms, checked the humidity levels on a new batch of winter spawn, and finally felt a deep, uninterrupted quiet.
3 months later, my mother showed up at our main facility. Security flagged her at the gate, but I told them to let her in. She stood in the center of our massive automated greenhouse complex, looking small against the towering racks of biobeds and glowing LED grids. For the first time in her life, she was seeing the scale of what she had ignored. She didn't offer a greeting. She just started crying. She told me Chloe had lost her apartment, her car had been repossessed, and she was currently working double shifts at a diner just to pay off her debts. "Why didn't you just tell us, Julian?" she sobbed, gesturing vaguely at the facility. "Why keep all this a secret from your own family?" "I never kept it a secret, Mom," I said, my voice flat. "You just never asked, not once. You were too busy looking at Chloe's trophies to notice what I was building." She stepped forward, reaching out to touch my arm, using that soft, pleading voice she used to reserve exclusively for my sister. "But we're family, Julian. We need to stick together." I took a step back, out of her reach. "We're related, Mom. There's a difference." I looked down at her expensive leather boots. "And you should probably head out. There's a lot of wet soil on the floor today. You wouldn't want to stain your shoes." She left, her shoulders slumped. I didn't watch her walk to her car. The final communication came a month later in the form of a certified letter from a low-cost legal aid attorney Chloe had hired. The letter claimed that my sudden termination of the Aura Group contract had directly caused her financial ruin and argued that I had a moral and familial obligation to provide her with a financial stipend until she found equivalent executive employment. I didn't pass it to our legal team. I didn't need to waste their billable hours. I took a black marker, wrote 4 words across the front of the document, and scanned it back to her lawyer's office. "Get a real job." I haven't heard from any of them since.
Last I heard from a distant cousin, my parents sold their suburban home to help cover Chloe's legal and personal debts, and they've all moved into a small rental closer to the city. It's a quiet reality, far removed from the luxury dining rooms they used to frequent. Meanwhile, Terra Nova Bio is thriving. We just broke ground on a new research center, and I finally built my dream home, a quiet place on 20 acres of forested land with a private laboratory out back where I can experiment in peace. People sometimes ask me if I miss my family. The honest answer is no. I miss the idea of a family. I miss the version where parents support their kids equally and siblings lift each other up. But I never actually had that, so I didn't lose anything real. My true family is Sam, our team, and the people who stood in the mud with me when we had nothing. Success doesn't change who you are. It just strips away the noise and unmasks the people around you. Don't let them rewrite your past just because your present looks lucrative. Walking away isn't weakness. It's just peace.